All right, so this is gonna be group one discussion time. So every Monday, except for the Memorial Day holiday, we will meet for about 45 minutes. It's an opportunity for you guys to ask any questions that you have, talk about any obstacles, anything that you think you're doing well. And I'll always come with an agenda, something that I want to discuss in case you guys don't have a ton of questions. So the first thing I wanted to go over is going to be the score sheet. Did everybody get to watch my video and kind of see how you're going to submit the score sheet? If you didn't, that's fine. I sent it out. You should have that in email or on Facebook, whichever way you guys prefer to be communicated to. So I'm just going to go over that quickly. There are a couple items like, did you have a 8-ounce glass of water within an hour of waking? So like this may be something you already do. If you don't, it's going to be a nice, easy additive. It helps us work on hydration. It helps us make sure that we're getting something in our system right away. So you'll get a point for that. People always ask me, how much water do I need to drink? So the recommendation is going to be 50 ounces for this challenge. You can measure that however you see fit, but you'll be answering the question, did I have a 50-ounce total amount of water today? Did you exercise? It doesn't have to be like formal exercise. It could be something as simple as walking. It could be going to your gym. It could be Zumba, whatever you consider your form of exercise, as long as it's something that you do on your own regularly and say, hey, I'm exercising. You're going to be accumulating 7 hours of sleep. So that'll be 7 hours straight, or that'll also include any naps that you take. So if you're fortunate enough to be able to go home and take a nap, my 16-month-old does. I don't know if you
I need those blinds in the office.
but it'll be 7 hours total. So research shows that sleeping or getting high quality sleep is actually more important than exercise in terms of helping us get results. So if sleeping is something you don't do well, that's going to be something that you're going to focus on. So that could be something as simple as getting in bed a half an hour earlier, turning off the TV, reading a book, maybe turning off electronics, just starting to kind of focus on getting higher quality sleep. Fish oil, most people responded to me letting me know that they either have a fish oil that's high quality enough or they purchased something. Does anybody have a question about the fish oil stuff? Okay, everyone's good there. Multivitamin, I got a couple questions about a good multivitamin. I don't recommend multivitamins. I have doctors or pharmacists who sometimes say for females the prenatal vitamins are the best. I say if you have a question about your multivitamin, go to your doctor, ask them if there's one they recommend. We're really just trying to make sure we're not deficient in anything. So a lot of times when people start these challenges, they may feel better merely because they're taking a multivitamin and they hadn't been taking one before. You'll get a point for posting to the Facebook group. So I was explaining to the ladies in here before everybody joined us about the interaction on the Facebook group. I do this in a corporate setting, and I also do it for the members of our own gym and just anybody who wants to participate. And the Facebook group can be super valuable. I'm curious to see how it'll be with this group because I know you guys work together and you get the benefit of interacting regularly face to face. Maybe you sit close to somebody, or maybe you're just not comfortable sharing certain things with the people you work with. That's fine. But the more you share, the better it'll be, because if you have a question, the likelihood that somebody else has that same question is probably pretty high. And also just for the motivational factor, maybe if you're kind of entering a week and you're like, what do I gotta do this again or whatever, when you start to see everybody else that's doing it, I can't tell you how much the Facebook group has been valuable to us in the past. So I encourage you to use it, even if it's stepping outside your comfort zone to do that. In terms of the actual points for the meals, this is when we gotta make sure we have we're all on the same page. You will get points if you're eating a portioned amount of food. So I sent out a video. Did everybody get that and look at it? If not, definitely make sure you look at it before tomorrow. There are 3 ways that we'll measure. When I met with you guys all individually, we talked about the tray method first, because that's usually the one that elicits the most questions. So hopefully we have those questions answered. If not, we'll spend some time talking about that today. But the other 2 methods were the hand method and then the plate method. So either one of those or any of those will get you points. But the one that'll get you the most points is if you're using the tray, and that's going to be because it's going to be the most accurate form of measuring out of those 3 versions that we have. Any questions on any of the portion stuff? Okay, you guys are easy. You'll get an extra point, a bonus point, if you use the tray as opposed to the other methods, and then you'll get an additional point if your starchy carb comes from something that's a fruit or a vegetable. So we talked about that starchy carb section, that you could utilize that for anything you'd like. That could be Oreo cookies, that could be pasta, but you'll get an extra bonus point if you use something that's like a fruit or a starchy vegetable, maybe sweet potato, regular potato, and you're going to answer that for all your meals. Next, you'll get additional points. I think the last one is going to talk about alcohol. Did you have any caloric beverages today? That'll be soda, juices, whatever it is, you're going to include that there. Okay, I will be asking how many of those you drank and what it was, just so I can make sure I'm understanding everything that's going on. And then you'll have a question about, did you have any snacks? And if so, were your snacks balanced? Okay, so the first question I want to talk about is, some people were asking me, well, do I need to eat all of that food? You know, you told me I need to eat 4 trays. Like, there's no way I think I'm going to be able to eat 4 trays. My recommendation is going to be in the beginning that you really give yourself about a 2-week period of time to baseline, because what ends up happening is you may realize that at first it looks like a lot of food, but your body will adjust. Or perhaps you feel like, oh, it's not enough food, and your body will adjust. If after that 2-week period you're like, oh, this just isn't working for me, obviously reach out to me. We're all going to be meeting at the halfway point to redo our measurements to see what change is taking place. And it also gives us another opportunity to meet face to face to make sure if there's any questions that you have, you get them answered before we ride out the end of the challenge. Some people had said to me, oh, well, I don't know if that'll be enough food. I'm a really big guy, or whatever, whatever the response is. And I want you to understand that when you're eating a tray, you can have unlimited vegetables. So maybe that's not necessarily ideal in terms of, hey, I'd rather have the unlimited starchy carb or something like that. But those unlimited vegetables are designed to help you feel full. So what we're doing is we're really trying to make sure we're getting a good portion of protein and a good portion of vegetables. Those things are high in protein, high in fiber, and they allow us to feel that feeling of satiety much longer than if you're just eating things like granola or chips or cookies or a granola bar or something along those lines, okay? My recommendation is going to be that you stick to the tray number first. So I told a couple of people, okay, you can have some snacks, and I kind of talked about what those snacks, the frequency of them, what it should look like. But I want you to utilize the trays first, and if you need a snack, then go and decide to have that snack. That snack will be balanced. We talked about that. I gave a sheet on some examples of that, so if you have any questions, let me know. Any questions on anything I said so far?
Can you go over the cream for your coffee and stuff?
Yes,
again?
I got that here. That's my first thing.
Right.
Okay. So a couple people, I can't tell, you guys are like a coffee-driven, you must be like high energy in this place. I've never had so many questions about coffee. And I love coffee too, but I guess I drink it black, so it's pretty simple. So a lot of people said, okay, I only use half and half, or I use the flavor creamer, or I use sugar and half. So my recommendation would really be that you kind of put those things on hold and not use them throughout the challenge. I did promise everybody that you weren't going to have to give everything up, so if that's something where you're like, Vanessa, I really can't not have that, I have a solution. But my recommendation is if you're having sugar in your coffee, maybe you just go to the half and half. Or if you're doing a flavored creamer, maybe you just go to the half and half. Try and make a change slightly, or use less of what you're already using, okay? But with that said, what the measurements look like, if you're using sugar or flavored creamer, they're actually almost identical in terms of their carbohydrate amount. So 1 tablespoon would be, for your flavored creamer, has 5 grams of carbs. Not that that matters to you per se, but what that means is you could have 2 tablespoons of flavored creamer, and that would take up a third of your starchy carb section, so you would have 2/3 of a starchy carb section. So 2 tablespoons would be the amount of flavored creamer that you could have, and then still allow yourself 2/3 of that starchy carb. So if you were to have 6, and some of you aren't measuring, like when I talk to you, you're like, oh, I just pour it until it turns completely white. I don't even like coffee. Yeah, I don't even know why I'm drinking this, because really half of it's cream and then this much is coffee. But maybe that means like today, as you're having your coffee, you need to actually take a tablespoon and measure it so you know how much you're using, okay? If you were to use about 6 tablespoons, that would be all of your starchy carb section at breakfast if you were having your coffee with your breakfast, okay? So what that shows you is that creamer or that sugar is not really a high quality food. So when you take something like creamer or sugar and you decide to consume that, the amount of nutrients that you're getting versus the amount of calories you're getting is pretty minimal, right? There's really no nutrients in something like that or sugar, and it's just super high in calories. So like, again, do we have to not have that? Not necessarily, but would you much rather eat a whole starchy carb section of food as opposed to drink it with sugar or with your creamer? For me, yes, and that's why I drink my coffee black. And other people may be like, no, I'll give it up for breakfast. I'll go without the starchy carb because I love my coffee. I'm not getting rid of that. That's fine. And if that's something you want to do, then that's something that you do. In terms of the half and half, about a tablespoon is equivalent. We'll say about 2 tablespoons is equivalent to a third of your thumb size of fat. So if you like the half and half, you could have up to about 4 to 5 tablespoons. Hold on, let me do some quick math. 2, 4, 6. You can have about 8 total tablespoons of that, and that would be all of your fat. So like if you like half and half, that's probably a better deal. Like just use it as your fat, and then you can still have your starchy carb, right? And then you don't have to worry about adding fat to breakfast. Does that create more confusion?
I'm going black.
Typically, I'm trying something out here. Typically, most people just give all that stuff up for 6 weeks. So my recommendation would be to do that for the best results. And after 6 weeks, we could talk about how you're going to incorporate something like that back in. But if it's something that you love and you're not giving up, I'd much rather control the portion of it than, everyone, your productivity level is going to go way down when everybody's not taking their coffee. Or it's going to go way up when they're just having it black. Any questions on like the coffee, the sugar, the half and half, or the creamer?
It's like when I have coffee, I'll put either like cinnamon, like black with cinnamon, or I'll use like flavored protein mix with almond milk, and then I use that in coffee.
Yeah, so the cinnamon's a great option. I do that sometimes also. And I mean, yeah, it's just like, I always laugh because I was just on vacation with my mother, and she has this huge cup of coffee. It's like probably 7 cups. Those really large cups. It's hilarious. And she has the coffee, and then I just watch, and I'm like, it's like a dessert. I'm like, and she's like, it's the only thing that I have that's not good, and I won't ever give it. I'm like, all right, lady, I'm not going to argue with you. But it's like, it's just so much extra stuff that we don't always realize that we're having. So like, it's just really important that you're being mindful of it. And for most of you, I can guarantee you, when you're putting something like sugar or flavored creamer in your coffee, you're probably not even paying attention to how much you're using, and that's where it becomes problematic. So even throughout the challenge, if you're like, okay, let's measure it, let's have a cup of coffee and see how much I'd use. And now let's work to have a little less than that, and then eventually maybe you won't need as much of it, and then you could get your calories from something else other than flavored creamer.
How about if you're addicted to Dunkin' Donuts?
So like a flavored coffee or something like that?
I gotta have my French vanilla every morning.
So do you get it black?
No. They put it in.
They put like
she
a
has
syrup
it
in
waiting
it?
for me every morning.
Oh, she's not going to see you for like 6 weeks. She's going to say, what happened to this one? She probably has her cell phone number. She's going to have to call you and ask you what's going on. What I'd say is we can look at the nutrition facts on it specifically. Okay. There are a couple people email me like certain things that they can't live without. And if you send me the nutrition facts, I could do the math and tell you what that is. But off the top of my head, I don't know what you put in it.
I don't put it. I can tell her to cut out the sugar.
So like if whether
and sugar.
Yeah.
So if it's like
it's rather white. It's rather white.
And I always
it's rather white.
And it's extra large. It's not even a large.
They automatically make me the extra large every morning. Like I've always asked for medium, but she just upgraded me to extra large
because you're such a good customer.
What I say is let's look at and see what goes in it, but I definitely say get rid of the sugar. If it's like French vanilla coffee and they're not adding additional syrup, flavored coffee like that would be something that's acceptable. Okay. But if they're adding, I know like sometimes you can get like those squirts of syrup and stuff like that. Yeah. That's what we really want to be careful of, that, and then adding the sugar. So like I try it black, even if you go with a small one and you want to bring it here and then put some half and half where you're in control of what goes inside. Okay. But I definitely would be mindful of like when you're eating out, whether it's a beverage, whether it's food, you're not preparing it, so you don't always know what goes in it. So that's something that we want to be mindful of. Any more questions on the coffee stuff? No, do you drink coffee?
Yeah, but to the point where it doesn't taste like coffee.
Jeez. Yeah, that was like the one thing that I told myself I'd never give up. And then I just started drinking it black, and then I said, what the heck, it doesn't really taste much different. So anyway, maybe you guys, by the time this challenge is over, maybe you'll all be drinking black coffee.
First bagel saving a lot of money.
I drink coffee.
Okay. Black. All right, so next question. Somebody asked me about protein powder. Well, how does the protein powder fit in? So if you're using protein powder, if it's a scoop, and you'll want to look at your protein powder, the back of it, there are some protein powders that are designed for muscle gain, like they're gainers, and they'll have a ton of carbohydrates and fat, additional stuff in it like that. If we're using it as the protein section, you want to make sure it's just high in protein. So a couple people asked me what protein powder I use, and I shared that with everybody. I purchased bulk supplements on Amazon. It's pretty affordable, and it's got like 2 ingredients in it, so it's not super flavorful like your coffees, but it's just got protein and not a lot of additives. So like you can buy some that are cookies and creams, things like that, but usually they'll have a ton of carbohydrates and a ton more fat. So it depends on what your purpose is. If your purpose is gaining weight, you'd want to use a protein powder of that nature. But if your purpose is just getting the protein in, you'll want to make sure that you're having something that's low in fat, low in carb. Majority of the time, something that's just protein will have less than a gram of carbohydrate and fat. For those macronutrients. So you'll want to check that out. That will count if you're using a scoop. It's probably somewhere around 21, 27 grams of protein. That would count as your entire protein section. So the reason why I was kind of talking about this, there are some people, I guess, who do the shakes after they work out, but there are a lot of people who do breakfast smoothies. So if you're using a protein powder, if you have a question about that, make sure you send me the nutrition facts, like just take a picture of the back and I can give you whatever information you need about that. But the next question was, well, I don't really eat a lot at breakfast, so I'm kind of struggling with thinking about breakfast ideas. If you know that you don't eat a lot at breakfast, you can postpone that tray to when you would actually be eating. There's no requirement to eat your first meal within a certain period of time. Ideally, we would like to have you eat within an hour of waking, give or take. But if you know that, hey, I'm not really a breakfast person, if you want to have your first tray when you'd have that first meal, that's fine. If you prefer to do something like the breakfast smoothie, that's probably what a lot of people do when they don't really want to eat a large breakfast. And the benefit of the breakfast smoothie is if you're not huge on the whole vegetable thing, you can add that into your smoothie. So like what that would look like is you'd take your tray, you'd have your protein powder as your, if you wanted to have everything all in one. You could still have eggs separate if you chose to do that. You put your protein powder in one, and then your vegetable section of spinach, kale, whatever it was, would be what you throw in the blender. If you're adding anything like banana or frozen fruits, that would literally be the amount of fruit that you could fit in that starchy carb. You could throw all that in a blender and you can make a breakfast smoothie. That does count as one of your trays, so if depending on how you want to utilize those, that's up to you. But if you're somebody who doesn't really like to eat breakfast, that's what a ton of people do. It's quick and easy, and you're still getting the points for having it be balanced in that tray fashion. Any questions about the smoothies? Okay. Other people said, I just can't eat that much food for breakfast. If you want to eat half a tray's amount and save the other half later, the goal is that you're eating your tray's amount of food throughout the day, which brings me to the other question that somebody asked. Well, do I need to eat all of that food, or is it like a minimum? It's more like a minimum. So if you're finding I asked you to eat 4 trays. I've had some guys who have had to 4 trays, and they're like, I could just eat 3 trays. Like 4 trays is a lot. Maybe I could get 3.5 trays. You don't have to force feed yourself all of that food, especially if you're opting for high quality food or having unlimited vegetables at a meal. It could definitely fill you up quite quickly. So if you decide that you don't want to eat all of your trays, that's fine. That's more or less like the minimum guideline that you're trying to have. And that goes with the snacks. If I told you, hey, you could have 1 or 2 snacks, if you don't want to have snacks, you don't have to have them. I just want to make sure that nobody feels like they're starved for that challenge. I've done this challenge a bunch of times, and nobody's ever told me that it's like a diet where they feel like they aren't eating anything. Yes, I'm asking you to eat higher quality foods, but it's more or less a very large amount of food that you can have. Any questions on the breakfast options or smoothies, anything like that?
Yeah, what if you end up, say, with eggs? Because the protein, that protein section would probably hold about 3 eggs. I mean,
Yeah.
two eggs.
Yep.
3 eggs.
Yeah, it's about 3 for women, and you could put great, good thing you brought this in. Sorry.
I can't even finish this. I'm full right now.
Yeah, see, so if you want to put a lid on it and eat it later, but so what ends up going typically it's about 3 eggs for women, and it could potentially be 4 eggs for guys. So that equals about 21 grams of protein and about 28. So that's appropriate for men or women. So somewhere between that. What most people end up doing is maybe they do 2 or 3 eggs, and maybe they do a breakfast sausage. You don't necessarily need to eat it all, but you can see how if you were a larger gentleman or myself, I eat a ton. I'm filling that up. I usually have 2 eggs and 2 breakfast sausage patties every morning, in addition to everything else in that tray. So it gives you some flexibility. If you're hungry, you can eat a little less. If you're hungry and you feel like you need more, you can eat a little bit more. But it's not going to be any more than about 4 grams of protein that you'll fit in there. And in 4 grams.
That's for weight loss. You have to eat all of that.
And again, if you can't eat it all, you don't have to force feed yourself, but really what you're doing is like, you're gonna realize that although you may feel like you're eating more food, all these extra things that you'll have in your nutrition plan, like or your diet, whether it's like the coffee creamer, all these other things have a ton of extra calories, and like when you're not eating as much of those things, you'll realize like, hey, I'm actually eating more food, but you're probably all gonna end up taking in a significantly less amount of calories, just based on the choices that we're putting inside those trays. Make sense? Any other questions? Okay, so then the next thing I wanted to talk about was the alcohol. So a couple people asked me, and I'm changing my mind. I'm going back. That's why I want to make sure it's on video. And I shared it in another video, but then somebody asked me the same question. I was like, maybe they didn't watch my video, or like, did I send that out? But with the alcohol, I had said like, oh, you can kind of, if you don't want to use a starchy carb from one meal and you want to roll them over. And then I was talking to my husband and telling him what I said. Then he goes, Vanessa, why are you changing your own rules at work? So I'm going back. So what that means is you're probably going to be consuming a lot less alcohol than you'd like. And sorry.
Alcohol. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, it's everybody. It's really everybody.
We
So,
have some issues.
so what
Not giving up the alcohol.
what I mean about the alcohol is,
that out there.
so like if you would use your starchy carbs, like technically that would mean you have one drink with dinner. If you find like, oh, I would typically have 3 or 4, are you going to get that point for your balanced tray if you had 3 drinks with dinner? You're not. Now, does that mean like, oh, screw it, like then I'll just have whatever I want? I sent a video out this morning, which you may have watched, but probably not because you guys are all working very hard this morning, about the all or nothing attitude. Like, so the reason why changes to your nutrition usually don't work is we get so caught up on like this perfection or this all or nothing. Like, oh, well, I already broke rule number 1, so I might as well just go and eat whatever I'd like. It's like the worst attitude you can have about anything. You're never going to be all in. Like, nothing is ever going to be working. Like, you're going to have a bad day at work. You're going to get stuck in traffic. You're going to get into an argument with somebody and be emotional. Whatever the heck it is. Like, such is life. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I want you to remember that, like, you're trying to make good change, and it doesn't have to be 100% on to see results. So, like, at the end of all these challenges, I usually sit down with people, and I always like to ask them, like, well, what % of compliance would you say you were operating at? And I have people who get great results, and they're like, I probably did it 70%. I did what you told me to do 70% of the time. And I like to ask them that, and then I see the results, and I get to say, you're probably right. This is about a 70% effort in terms of the results you got. And they're still happy with those results. So like, you don't have to be 100% perfect to see results. If you want the best possible results, most definitely be 100% perfect as much as you can. But really what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a life change. And this isn't going to be how we eat forever, perhaps. But so if it's something like drinking, if you're like, hey, I really like to have a couple beers when I go out with my friends. All right, so maybe you normally drink 4 beers. Can you make it 3? Can you make it 2? Like, find some way to make it change. You may not get points for that meal being balanced because if you overdid the alcohol, right, we're not within those parameters, but you're still going to get good results. So, like, even if you aren't getting those points, it doesn't mean you should just go and do whatever the heck you want, because you still want to get the best results possible, because that's why you all decided to sign up and go through with this, right? So, like, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Anybody feel like they want to say something to me about the alcohol or like have a conversation? So like if I go out and I'm like, okay, I would typically have 3 glasses of wine or whatever it is, I'm like, all right, throughout this 6 weeks, I'm going to take it down to 1 or 2. Okay, I don't get that point, but I know I'm drinking significantly less. Like, there's a ton of calories in alcohol. So like when people look at me and they're like, oh, I want to lose this right here, I'm like, and I look at their food, I'm like, I meet with people who drink a lot of drinks every night. Like, it's just their social life. They go out, and that's cool. And I'm not.
I feel like you're repeating our whole conversation.
No. I actually have one of my best clients.
Wildflowers gonna be like, where's Stacey?
No, one of my best clients. She just started not too long ago. Her thing, she ate fairly well. And she just likes to drink. She's single. She, whatever the case is, and like, she's like, when I go out with my friends, so she actually texted me this morning, when I asked her how things were going, and she's like, Vanessa, I realized I gotta change all my friends. Like, and she really, and it wasn't even a joke, but she's like, I cut out half of my friends, and I'm like, gosh, these people are gonna come for me, like, and she's like, they just don't get it. And like, they're ordering me shots when I sit down. I got drinks waiting for me. And she's like, I want to get rid of this. Like, I don't want, and I think she saw like 8 pounds in the first 30 days. so she's seen great results, and she's like, I want to keep it going. Like, summer's coming, I want to feel good about my body for once. And like, I'm like, all right, girl, like, we just need to cut out this alcohol. So it's coming up with a plan to do that. And like, if you feel like you eat, everyone's smiling. See, it's everybody, right? If you feel like that's something, there's no one person. Everybody I spoke to has something. But like, if you feel like this is something you really want, and you have looked at yourself and be like, this isn't going away, whatever it is, I'm gonna ask you, like, well, what needs to change? And like, we can't avoid what needs to change. Like, I'm here to tell you and be honest with you and just say, hey, this is what needs to change. You don't like it, that's fine. People curse at me, I get those kind of text messages too. That's all part of the job. But like, I'm gonna be honest with each one of you, and if you wanna get good results, I've been doing it for a really long time. I know what works, so it's like, try it for 6 weeks. Even if you're like, okay, after 6 weeks, I'm gonna go right back to eating whatever I want, drinking whatever I want, but really let yourself see what change you can make in the 6 weeks. And if that means cutting the alcohol down to 3, if that means cutting the snacks down to whatever, we're gonna try and do that throughout 6 weeks. And I ask everybody to try and stick to it for the first 3 weeks so we can get back on the InBody, see what changes are happening, redo our inches and all that fun stuff, and kind of see what's going on.
Can you add like an extra cardio workout if you know you're going out that night, or anything to help?
We're
you
looking
out?
for any other.
Boy, they're trying.
So my answer to that is, I highly recommend it, but
You're not going to get the point for the drag.
so in terms of like the benefit of exercise, science is to the fact where like after exercise, your body is very good at burning fat and carbohydrates. So most of the day, your body's just going through carbs. It's not actually even tapping into burning off the fat. So post-exercise is a really great time if you're going to do something that's not perfect, to do that not perfect thing, like to maybe have more carbohydrates, something like a larger meal. But unfortunately, the people who benefit from that are the people who are already pretty lean. So those of us who are still looking to make a pretty big dent in the number, like most of the time people meet with me and they're like, yeah, well, I exercised, so then I went and ate this, and I'm like, that's not going to be the best for everybody. So the people who usually benefit from that are people who are usually pretty lean in a certain body fat percentage range. So like, can you exercise? Most definitely. Is that going to burn extra calories? Sure. Does that mean you're going to get better results? Sure. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to say, okay, you burn X amount of calories, you get another drink tonight. No. All that means is like, you're going to put an umbrella in your glass of water, and you're going to order 1 or 2 drinks, whatever it is you decide on, and you're going to just have the time of your life without alcohol. Right? Then you become like me. Like, you just are people, you don't need any alcohol. You're just a ball of energy everywhere you go because you don't really drink much. Any questions about the alcohol? All right. And I
Got it all covered.
I can tell you other people, if you feel like you need me to put you in contact with somebody who's been in that situation and saw good results, I have plenty of people who changed their alcohol or something like that would be more than willing to kind of give you some tips on things that they did. Next thing, recipes. So with the recipes, some people are asking like, oh, I make this chili, or I make, I'll be sharing recipes with you throughout the challenge that I like or that other people have recommended to me. And some of them are like things that you prep in like a crock pot, like pretty easy meal prep ideas. And when you do something like that has like some potato or beans or whatever the case is, you'll actually fill up the side of your tray that's not the vegetables, and that would be how much of that you could have. So an example of that would be like the chili with beans, lean meat or whatever it is that goes into that, and then you'd still have your vegetables alongside it. Any questions about that? All right, let me see if I had any other questions off the top of my head that I wrote down or that anybody else asked me. All right, so that's all those are all the questions that everybody sent me individually in email. I just wanted to share with the larger group to make sure we're all on the same page. Anybody else have any other questions before we? All right, so who why are you smiling? You gotta say something. He's getting ready for wedding season.
Right.
Had some pretty good numbers, right? So, have you changed up your exercise routine at all?
No, not yet.
We're working on that. Are you coming tonight?
Are you coming tonight?
Heck yeah.
All right.
Bag's all packed, ready to go.
All right. Yeah, who's coming to the workout? Anybody here? Awesome. All right, you're working, right?
I have stuff.
You're busy. I believe it. All right. So before I let you guys head out, I want to make sure, did everybody kind of start to prep? Did you determine what portion control method you're using? Is it the trays? Is it the hand? Is it the plate? Is it going to be a combination of them all? Trays for now?
Trays.
Okay.
I actually tested the waters last week and was doing breakfast and lunch with the trays.
How'd you like it?
It's a little getting used to, a little tough getting used to with the vegetables and everything, but it's getting there.
The vegetables is the hardest part.
Yeah,
I always have some pushback on the veggies, but
But you have to have the starchy carb as part of the balance, right? Which, like, you have to have all categories and the fat is the
so you do
balance,
not. So starchy carb and vegetables are carbs. So when I post pictures in the Facebook group, you'll see that I don't always have a starchy carb. I may just have protein and green beans or something like that. I'm very interesting. You'll see I eat the same stuff like all the time now. It's like broccoli, like this lady, everyone's like, you eat green beans like every week. I love green beans. And that'll happen to all of you too. People always say like, oh, I don't really like vegetables. And at the end they're like, I'm craving broccoli. I'm like, my job here is done. But so you don't have to have starchy carb and vegetables. Vegetables are carbohydrates. People don't always, they kind of get their own classification just because they're a higher quality carb. But like if you choose to just have veggies and protein and your fat, that would be fine. So like who does that? A lot of people who are looking to see a big weight loss goal, that when they ask me like, okay, well how can I see the best weight loss? It's like, okay, well, don't do the starchy carb. Maybe it's your last meal before bed and you're not exercising or anything like that, and you're kind of just in shutdown mode, slowing down. You can just do your protein and vegetables before bed. That gives people great results, and it's still nice, delicious, tasty, balanced, and you get all those points. So you don't have to have the starchy carb. You just have to have the vegetables. The starchy carb is like a really good thing to have after working out, maybe before working out, just to make sure that you have energy for that. But it's not required. And with that said, if you're coming tonight, please make sure that you eat something within an hour or 2 hours before coming. I don't need anybody getting lightheaded on me. No, nobody will pass out. It's only going to be like a 12-minute workout or something. It's going to be fun, some interval stuff. But make sure it's really important that when you're exercising, especially if you're doing something that's a little different than, why are you laughing?
Because she keeps asking me, am I going to be lifting a barbell? What am I doing tonight?
No.
I'm like, oh my
What
God.
And I don't want to do snatches. I already did
That's
that
what you
today.
said to me this morning. Are we doing snatches tonight? I'm like, what are you asking me for?
I don't even go there. I don't know.
Exactly. I don't even belong
Are you
to the
confusing
gym.
me with the other lady? We're gonna do probably some rowing. There may be some snatching, but it's not gonna be with the barbell. It's gonna be a dumbbell snatch probably, which is super easy to learn. Okay. I'll show you how to do it
Properly.
way.
I
I'll show you
knew
the
you were going to say
I'll
that.
show you the real way to do it, and then you can go do it there. And then we're gonna do some squatting. So it's gonna be a nice little workout. So maybe one other movement there. It's gonna be fun, great, all that fun stuff. Any questions about anything else before I let you guys head out? So everybody's ready to go because this starts tomorrow.
Yes.
So I see you guys eating from the trays. I've seen a lot of good meal prepping, people getting used to it. Try and eat a couple meals from the trays so that if you have questions before tomorrow, you can let me
Could
know.
drink tonight.
Did you get all your food that you need?
Yeah.
Did you talk to your roommate who makes vegetables?
And a little bit, not as much as probably
Do
should.
you know what they look like now?
Do you need to give me her number? All right.
More familiar.
Any obstacles that you guys are thinking that you're going to run into before we get going tomorrow? So first week obstacles that we can clear out before we head out.
Just a quick question. You said you had samples of like snacks?
I share those.
I had,
Did you guys not see them on
Yeah, it's a
Facebook?
list.
And I sent it an email.
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I sent it. It should go through email. I know Tom and a couple other people aren't on Facebook. Like these cool cats aren't really. They don't want to friend me to be in the Facebook group. They're too
I
cool.
just don't use
Was
it.
it
I send
today?
it.
That just came in today or yesterday?
Stuff like
Yes.
your profile pictures, my
Yeah.
profile pictures.
Okay.
Yeah, it came out. It came out over the weekend. And then Tom, just so you guys know, Tom's thinking he's got this in the bag. I don't know how much you see him, but
Fen. Wow.
he's such a funny guy. He's in it to win it, man. He's like, I used to be a college athlete. He's probably gonna watch this and call me out on it. But so he's in that competitive mindset. So I hope you guys are all there too. All right. So who's gonna win?
Tom Fenn.
You heard it here. All right. Any other questions? Did everybody do some meal prepping over the weekend? You're ready to go.
Yes.
You're not going into it blinded.
I
No,
have
you're
proof.
doing.
I didn't have any time.
You're doing some tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you making? Do you have it already picked out?
Spaghetti squash,
Okay. Delicious. What's your protein gonna be?
chicken.
Okay, awesome. All right, that's all I got, guys. Get back to work. If you have questions, let me know.
Thank you.
Thank
Don't throw out all the
See you
sugar and all
tonight.
the creamers.
You're right, Cameron.